rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Adjusting the hat and things like that. I went outside today. I was doing some yard work, and then all of a sudden the sky opened up on me. I was having battles with blackberry bushes. For those of you that don't know, or maybe don't have any experience, these blackberries, the European blackberry, I believe is what it is, it grows pretty much any place. And it will grow once it takes root. It takes forever to get rid of them. Anyway, I was out fighting with those, and then I had a little fun myself by getting my burn barrel going a little bit, just to kind of clear out all of the growth that was there, because that's what the blackberries were covering, was the burn barrel. Anyway, I know, life of a country boy. All right, so let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight, we have on tap the NJY Girls Youth Band. At least I think it's NJY Camp Youth Girls. I always get it wrong. Outlaw Dogs would have to be here, although she's probably caught up watching the Westminster Dog Show or whatever that might be going on. Anyway, she would probably correct me. All right. So let's go ahead and get that kicked off. If you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat, if you're wearing one, like me. And let's place your hand over your heart and follow along with the NJY Youth Camp Girls Band. We're just going to go with that one in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah!
All right. And, of course, I thank you for submitting that wonderful rendition of the pledge to a beat. Let's do a beat. Anyway, if you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting the Pledge of Allegiance in your style, and then, of course, taking that audio file or video file, whatever kind of file, and attach it to an email. Send it off to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, FANS, at fans at AmericanPerspective.online. Man, I got distracted by the fact that somebody was saying, did y'all see there was an earthquake in Tennessee? That was Bonnie. No, I didn't see that, but it doesn't really surprise me any, because of course, Yellowstone is a supervolcano. That's all I'm going to say. So anyway, all right. Let's go ahead with tonight's headline sponsor, which, of course, is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government, as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following three key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content, to learn about our historical founding, and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this sexy, rounded corners, non-poke you in the rear end thingy, well, that's known as a leather-bound, Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Check this thing out. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. And there's no glue here. This is stitched. It is a stitched binding going all the way through the leather and the pages contained within. It's got a 100-year warranty against materials and workmanship defects, such that if you send this back to the manufacturer, they will either fix it or replace it for free. It is buddy tested, buddy approved. Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you to study for your civics badge in scouting. It'll probably help you to do your civics test as well. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online to get yours today. And of course, go and check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution, Constitution's offerings, as they are fantastic resources for that. And anyway, so I appreciate them and thank them for allowing me to be a brand affiliate. All right. Well, tonight is Saturday. Tonight is Saturday. Apparently, I confused Bonnie by the comment about Yellowstone. So, I mean, basically, you need to all I'm saying is that earthquakes in Tennessee, there's a volcano in Yellowstone. I mean, we have things in our midst, in our nature. By nature, I mean in our geological environment that most people don't even know about. So that's kind of, I mean, having an earthquake in Tennessee, while rare, is not impossible. While extremely rare is not impossible, is basically what I'm saying. That's all. All right. Anyway, tonight I'm drinking out of my Four Roses single barrel. I have maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 glasses if I stretch it. 2 glasses left in it, but it is in the wonderful, fantastic Whiskey Warrior P1 provided It Takes Stones to Drink with Whiskey glass. Trying to make sure that you guys can see all of that. And, of course, it has the requisite stones in the bottom. So there we go. There we go. So, all right. And, of course, the requisite first sip of the night. And I know some of my whiskey warriors are like, you drink like my grandma. Well, okay. Whatever. Anyway, so let's go on and get to the first segment of the program, which of course is On This Day in American History. And, of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb, chock full. See how thick that is? Chock full of all kinds of information and factoids about our historical founding. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the Transcontinental Railroad. It was the most daring engineering effort of its time. Many said it couldn't be done. The challenge? Join East and West by building a railroad across the bulk of the continent and some of the most rugged terrain on Earth. One congressman said they might as well try to build a railroad to the moon. Well, the United Pacific Railroad started building west from Omaha, Nebraska in 1863, while the Central Pacific Railroad built east from San Francisco. The plan was to meet somewhere in the middle. Now, it took 6 years and 2 armies totaling 20,000 men. Many of the workers were immigrants from China and Ireland who sweated long hours for $1 or $2 a day. They laid tracks across hundreds of miles of prairie and scorching desert. They pushed over heights of 8,000 feet and tunneled their way through hard mountain ridges, sometimes at a rate of only a few inches per day. They bridged stream after stream. The tracks crossed one river alone 32 times. In the winter, the workers plowed through the snowdrifts of 10 feet high or more. It took thousands of men just to shovel the tracks clear. Sometimes avalanches carried whole crews over the edges of mountains. On May 10th, 1869, the 2 tracks finally met at Promontory Point in Utah. Officials hammered the last spike. It was a golden one bearing the inscription, "May God continue the unity of our country as this railroad unites the 2 great oceans of the world." A telegrapher sent a signal into the country. Done. From New York to San Francisco, the nation cheered. The Transcontinental Railroad was the first in the world to cross a continent. It tied America together, helping open the West to settlers and proved that Americans were a people willing to tackle the impossible. That is on this day in American history. You know, reading through that book every Saturday, I got to tell you, it should fill every American with great pride in the fantastic and sometimes incredulous feats that this country itself has been able to accomplish, especially at times where, people say, yeah, it couldn't be done. Nope, can't be done. Americans sit down and say, hold my whiskey. Yeah. Anyway, just, yeah. Okay. All right. What's going on? All right. Well, I know it's kind of sad. It's a sad sack a day for the corporate media hysteria peeps that are out there. They all sit there and they talk about this. They all talk about Trump being a dictator and Trump being this and that and the other thing. Well, guess what? If you recall on that Meet the Press interview with Kristen Welker, yeah, he pretty much shut down all of that speculation. He basically said, yeah, guess what? I'm not running in 2028. I told you about this before, but what's really funny is the hysteria that the left and the leftist sycophant moron followers have. I got into a discussion on X, and thankfully I've pulled myself out of it now because somebody else has taken up the flame. But I got myself into a conversation on X with regards to, Trump and Hitler. This moron posted a picture of the picture of Trump standing outside of the church in Washington, D.C., holding up the Bible that, of course, everybody was like saying, oh, well, that thing is upside down and, trying to criticize him for all this stuff. Now, granted, this was after the White House was laid siege and was the potential for a breach of the outside defenses was large enough that they decided that the Secret Service decided to take Trump into the basement. Now, this is not brand new news. This was his last term. This was an event in this last term when the leftist lunatic BLM, I think it was for the BLM, they were all standing outside of the White House, and yeah, the Secret Service had a bit of a time trying to protect the perimeter without actually shooting anybody. Unlike the Michael Byrd guy did for an unarmed protester in Ashley Babbitt. But anyway, the Secret Service apparently was able to take care of the problem. Yeah, it was another one of those quote unquote mostly peaceful protests. Both Bonnie and 3 Chevy picked up on that. But anyway, Trump, they took that picture of Trump and they put it on top of, in this particular case, a picture of Hitler holding up a book of maybe similar dimensions or whatever. I don't know. But they were basically saying that, yeah, Trump is Hitler. Trump is Hitler. Really? Is Trump Hitler? I mean, let's think about this. First of all, yes, they were both elected, okay, but there's some questionality in terms of whether or not Hitler was actually, whether or not that particular election was, free and fair, let's say. And let's see, Trump follows the Constitution, loves America. Okay, Hitler loved Germany, but he didn't really follow along with any laws. He actually broke laws in order to get what he wanted done. Trump pretty much wants to protect Americans. Yeah, Hitler didn't care about certain Germans. All of these things. And well, I did respond on X, by the way, with a whole bunch of photos of Joe Biden. Yeah. With, him putting up his fists in front of Independence Hall with the red background behind him and the Marines standing there. Yeah, that was an image. That was that was some imagery right there. Some smart, I use that term lightly, smart imagery right there. And then also, too, don't forget the one where he's standing there with his fist held up defiantly in the exact same pose as Hitler when Hitler was doing that same pose, giving a speech. Biden was talking about those extremist ultra mega Republicans who are the evils of the world. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of comparisons that can be made and imagery that can be made, but the reality of it is when you sit down and look at the actual functionality of what's going on here in America, he is not anywhere near Hitler. I mean, you can sit here and try to make the comparison all day long, but yeah, no, he's not. He's not, spying on Americans. Yeah, that the Biden regime did that. He's not trying to censor free speech. Yeah, no, yeah, Biden did that too. He's not, legislating by executive order. Yeah, okay, Biden did that too. Yes, Trump has issued executive orders, but they are all within his legal capability. Always have been. Especially with the whole thing of like closing the border and deporting illegal aliens and things of that nature. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and compare Trump and Hitler again. Oh, these people are morons. It's just all there is to it. They're just morons. Anyway. All right, well, I'm just going to tell you, no, Trump is not running in 2028. And no, Trump is not going to not support the Constitution. He is smarter than that, folks. He's smarter than that, for sure, for all of that. But anyway. And in fact, Trump is making peace deals. I don't ever recall, outside of, Hitler making deals with other evil dictators like, who was the one? I think it's Mussolini and Stalin were the two that he was trying to make deals with, that he reneged on, by the way, at least in Stalin's case. But anyway, Trump and his administration is making peace deals. In fact, they've made a peace deal because both sides of this deal actually stepped forward to the table, unlike the Ukraine-Russia problem where Putin is not wanting to step toward the table. This one, Trump announces that there's a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Now, I talked about this. There's this little area that both of them were both countries kind of control. And of those two countries that control those areas, it was kind of, they had some people that were killed, and then there was India struck some terrorist areas within that area. Anyway, they ended up agreeing to a ceasefire. And he announced this early today that talks between the United States and India and Pakistan have led to a full and immediate ceasefire between the two. The news just comes days after India launched a missile strike into Pakistani-administered Kashmir and some Pakistani military bases, a move that escalated tensions after a deadly militant attack in Indian-controlled Kashmir, which India blames on Pakistan. Pakistan did retaliate with some drone and missile attacks on Indian military targets, marking the most intense conflict between those two. And by the way, both of them are nuclear armed. Just so you know, they both have nuclear weapons. Anyway, in decades, the armed conflicts, the most intense conflict in decades. Both nations accused each other of initiating the attacks, prompting international calls for de-escalation amid fears of a broader war. And so the United States offered to start constructive talks between the two nations, which of course ended up in, a ceasefire, a full and immediate ceasefire. So, both these countries can be applauded and thanked for getting into that place, for that. So, there you go. Now, Trump, of course, is a consistent and unwavering proponent of peace. And he has talked about this throughout both terms being president. We're not even into his second term very far, but he definitely has always talked about peace through strength. He's consistently talked about peace through strength. Well, the Deputy Prime Minister of Pakistan, Ishaq Dar, confirmed the ceasefire deal with the British broadcasting company, BBC. According to that outlet, Dar said Pakistan has always strived for peace and security in the region without compromising its sovereignty or territorial integrity. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also praised India and Pakistan, too, in a post on X, for choosing the path of de-escalation and indicating that the talks will continue between those two in nuclear-armed nations on a host of other matters as well. So, Rubio also noted that J.D. Vance was a part of the negotiations. Vance had previously told Fox News that the administration would encourage de-escalation, but that the United States would not get involved in the skirmish. Vance said, what we can do is try to encourage these folks to de-escalate a little bit, but we're not going to get involved in the middle of a war that's fundamentally none of our business and has nothing to do with America's ability to control it. So there you go. Good news and good work from the Trump administration, doing something that I'm sure Joe Biden and his administration probably wouldn't have even bothered to do with that. Well, speaking of old Joe, the left, the left wants him to go away. No surprise there. I mean, they kicked him to the curb in the 2024 election cycle and posted up Kamala Harris, who was vastly under qualified for the position. But anyway, Joe went on to The View, and one of his questions, or one of his times, he was talking about good old Ms. or Mrs. Well, I don't know if it's Mrs. Harris, because, you know, Doug has a different name. His name is Emhoff, so I don't know if it's Ms. or Mrs. or whatever. I mean, the cackler. Let's just call her the cackler. There we go. So he was on, and he was talking about the the choice in putting Kamala Harris in. So here, let's just go ahead and listen to Joe for just a few minutes.
But, Mr. President, last time you were here was a little over a month before the election, and you had made the selfless and very difficult decision, I'm sure, to step aside. And Democrats were feeling optimistic about the vice president's chances of winning the presidency. But then election night came, and it was like 2016 all over again. Yeah. So why do you think the vice president lost, and were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised, not because I didn't think the vice president was the most qualified person to be president. She is. She's qualified to be president of the United States of America. Right. But I was surprised. I wasn't surprised because they went the route of the sexist route, the whole route. I mean, this is a woman. She's this, she's that. I mean, it really, I've never seen quite as successful and a consistent campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country, and a woman of mixed race.
Yeah.
And they played that to a fairly well.
Correction, Joe. No, they didn't. They didn't. See, the problem, Joe, just to point this out, the problem, Joe, is that, well, she was dying. Not physically dying, but definitely dying in terms of the fact that she can't freaking get her thoughts together. And you had what was essentially a disastrous debate where it was literally 1-on-3. Well, 3-on-1, probably the more appropriate term. She could not debate anyone 1-on-1 without help. She apparently couldn't even do interviews, whether they were 1-on-1, 2-on-1, whatever, without help. And she essentially could not articulate her thought processes all that clearly. Had nothing to do with whether or not she was a woman or not. I'm telling you right now, folks, if you want a woman to be president, my pick, think Margaret Thatcher. Think Margaret Thatcher. And then you'll have a woman president. That's what you deal with. So, anyway, he also apparently had another couple of interesting scenarios where he was talking, and one of them in particular, he well, let's just say that his mental cognitive abilities demonstrated themselves. Yeah, here, let's just go ahead and take a watch at this one.
Yeah. Mr. President, since you left office, there have been a number of books that have come out, deeply sourced from Democratic sources, that claim in your final year there was a dramatic decline in your cognitive abilities. In the final year of your presidency, what is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that. Number one. Number two, you know, think of what we were left with. We were left with a circumstance where We had an insurrection when I started. We did not sense a civil war. We had a circumstance where we were in a position that the pandemic, because of the incompetence of the last outfit, end up over 1 million people dying. 1 million people dying.
Okay, so I'm just going to call this out only because this is going to take too long for him to get there before I can get back in here and talk. She asked about the final year that he was in office. Why is he talking about 2020 when he first got into office? Why is he talking about 2020 and 2021? I'm kind of confused because she specifically focused on the last year of his presidency. Well, I mean, let's see if he actually gets around to it. Hold on.
We're also in a situation where we found ourselves unable to deal with a lot of just basic issues, and which I won't go into in the interest of time. And so we went to work, and we got it done. And one of the things that and Alyssa, one of the things.
Okay, so before we hear from his caregiver, maid, whatever, just understand Joe got confused right there. Joe got confused. He didn't know what he couldn't remember the question. That's why he was simply stumbling and mumbling and talking about what was not the subject of the question. Well, now let's go ahead. Now, okay, keep in mind, all right, folks, just keep in mind all of this is the idea here is to demonstrate that Joe is still cognitively able and capable of being president, because they want to compare and contrast him to Trump. I mean, that's the point of this. Well, at least the best that I can tell, the point of him showing up on The View like this. And let's just listen to his caregiver, Jill, take over.
Things I think is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. I mean, he'd get up, he'd put in a full day, and then at night I'd be in bed, reading my book, and he was still on the phone reading his briefings, just working with staff. I mean, it was nonstop. It's the White House. Being president is not like a job. It's a lifestyle. It's a life that you live. You live it 24 hours a day. That phone can ring at 11 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning. It's constant. You never leave it. And Joe worked really hard. I think he was a great president. And if you look at things today, give me Joe Biden anytime.
Yeah, no. Did you notice that Joe kind of started to zone out there? He got the crossed arms, which, by the way, crossed arms like that is a defensive measure. All right. Sitting with your arms crossed means that you're closing yourself off to the situation, and you are attempting to defend yourself. And he's sitting there, and you'll notice he kind of dropped his head, and it wasn't until the audience started clapping and applauding, and then he woke up and he's like, oh, and then started smiling, and he's like, what are they clapping about? Now, you should have seen him. I didn't play this. I wasn't going to play this, but you should have seen him when he walked in. When he first walked into the stage, they, of course, fawning all over him. Clapping, applause, so on and so forth. Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, apparently this is so bad. And I got to tell you too, I have a feeling that this was also a publicist's idea. Like somebody in the Biden sphere put together this idea that, hey, we need to trot Joe out because of the fact that Donald Trump has now announced that he's going to be releasing her taped interviews, which even Robert Hur pointed out that, hey, I don't want to prosecute this guy because everybody will think of him as essentially a very nice grandpa who is an old man with poor memory. Yeah. You know, I also have a feeling that they're bringing him out because of the fact that you have Jasmine Crockett and AOC and Hakeem Jeffries and Adam Schiff and, well, let's just put it down to the point of, 20%, 21%, 22% appreciation for the Democrat Party by their own Democrats. They're trying to trot out the old stallion. I don't even think he's a stallion, but anyway, the old stallion to make things look better. Well, yeah, there's a report out that basically says that, you know what? We need to stop. And strategist Anthony Coley, who worked for the Biden administration, gave them a quote, okay? Gave The Hill, which is a leftist rag, a quote. And he said that basically elections are about the future. Every time Joe Biden emerges, we fight an old war. Every interview he does provides a contrast to Trump that is just not helpful for the Democrat brand, which needs trusted messengers and fighters who can reach independents and moderates and inspire the base. Joe Biden ain't that. Yeah, I actually think this is even more so part of the fracture that is going on within the Democrat Party, and especially the fracture with regards to Joe Biden getting passed up by Kamala Harris, and probably even because of Kamala Harris. I mean, let's be honest, she was the only one that could have threatened the 25th Amendment on him. But anyway, I have a feeling that some of this has to deal with the fact that the Democrat Party is so fractured and so messed up in terms of its leadership. They really don't have any kind of a leader anymore. They really don't. I mean, if you look at the people like Jasmine Crockett and AOC, those two are like on the extreme leftist of the party. And then you have Bernie Sanders, who basically is attempting to tie himself to AOC because of because of whatever their relationship that they may have in terms of the fact that they're both socialists. And they're running around the country talking about fighting the oligarchy, yet Bernie Sanders claims that he can't fly commercial because if he does, he can't get to where he needs to on time. And you have people also like Chuck Schumer, who's, in his 70s. I mean, just think of it this way. You've got Schumer, Sanders, Biden, all these old Pelosi. Oh my God, why did I forget her? All of these old guard Democrats that are so damn old, they're ancient. I mean, Pelosi pickles herself every time she picks up a vodka bottle, but I digress. And I can't forget Maxine Waters. They all are sitting there and they're trying to step out and demonstrate that, hey, the Democrat Party is still as strong as ever. Really? Is it now? Because it really isn't. And when you have somebody who attempts to try Obama's, very, very, very small shadow in Hakeem Jeffries, he tries to be an Obama and he fails every single time. And then you have Adam Shifty Schiff, who couldn't even make it in the House of Representatives because he lied and got told by his own people in the House of Representatives that he lied. Yeah. Anyway. So, yeah, so many people are talking about the fact that he is, he needs to go away. He just needs to hide. He needs to get out of the spotlight. Now, I seem to recall, believe it or not, there was this guy who was a Democrat by the name of Bill Clinton. He left office. Nothing. He disappeared. There was this other guy by the name of, George Herbert Walker Bush. He got out of office. Whoop, he's gone. No, nobody's ever seen him. He doesn't go on book tours. He doesn't do all these other things. He spends his time on his Texas ranch. Yeah. Up until Obama. And Obama decided that, no, I'm going to stay in the spotlight. I'm going to stay where I can be a part of the party. Probably because he knew, as well as everybody else, that there really was nobody else to pick up the mantle. That he was the last charming, capable of charismatic wooing over of the morons of the Democrat Party. And he was the last one because he went ahead and picked a geriatric white man. Not that it really matters whether he was white or black. It really doesn't make any difference. But a geriatric anyway, one of the old guard in Joe Biden as his VP. They literally had no place to go with that. Nowhere. And when you had people like Elizabeth Warren, who was trying to step into the spotlight, got caught being 1/10/24 Native American when she claimed that she was Native American all this time. Yeah, again, the Democrat Party's lies are coming home to roost. They really are. Well, leave it to Scott Jennings to articulate things in a very clear, let's say, manner on CNN, because again, I just love Scott Jennings. He is such a kick in the pants when it comes to these things. So let's go ahead and head on over there. Hopefully this plays. Oh, shoot. Sorry, hit the wrong button. Anyway, let's hope this plays, because I just looked at it and it's a replay, so we'll see if it comes back in.
Watching him on The View today and watching some of the interviews he did over.
Thank you for your viewership.
Yeah, I saw it. It's rare for me, but I did watch it.
You like Anna. That's what it is.
I will just say, watching him over the last few days reminded me that a whole bunch of people were telling us with a straight face that this man was capable of serving another 4 years as president. And that these appearances, coupled with what I understand is going to be the equivalent of a nuclear bomb dropped on the Democratic Party when Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book come out next week, I don't know that the Democrats have fully internalized what's about to happen to them. Between what he looks like today and what they're about to report, get ready.
I am not sure that Joe...
You just said that
what did he not say?
You said that he told Kamala Harris...
Wait. I got to go back for just a second. I got to pause this. I got distracted. Did Scott Jennings just say that there was a tell-all book about ready to come out from Jake Tapper and some other, writer? Ooh, we may have something to look forward to, more so than just the Her tapes. Wow. Well, let's continue on with this little interchange here that's about ready to happen.
So she could not have any distance from him.
It's been reported. He told
it doesn't
her
matter what he
blank.
was.
He told her point blank, no daylight, kid, no daylight.
Because reporting can never be wrong?
Are you attacking the journalism around it?
You think reporting can never be wrong?
If you want to be anti-journalism,
you come on here and you attack reporting every night.
I do not.
We actually asked him the question
There's critical
directly.
reporting about this guy, and he told her point blank, no daylight.
We asked him directly today. Right. Did you tell her that?
You think he's ever told a lie?
I don't think he tells many lies.
Cognitive decline, I can tell you that much.
I don't think he tells many lies. I don't think he's done a
Come on.
Wait. No, you know why you don't get to laugh like that? Because you support a guy who lies every freaking day and lies continuously. You support a guy who cannot acknowledge
that he lost the 2020 election
Jake Tapper
and that
right.
lies about it?
Yeah.
I have no idea what's in
guys.
Jake Tapper.
Everybody,
It's about
thank
the
you
crime
Have you
and the
read
crime and the
it?
cover-up.
Have you read it?
Guys, we gotta
Have you
go.
read
Thank
it?
you very
He's done
much.
some interviews.
We'll
Okay.
be right back.
Watching him on the
Apparently, it got so bad. It got so bad the host had to go to a break. Oh, anyway, yeah. It claims that Joe Biden didn't lie about anything. I'm telling you, if Joe Biden, honestly, if Joe Biden comes out with a book and they include Joe Biden's diary, I want them to include Ashley Biden's diary in it as well. God. Oh, Joe. Yeah, I don't necessarily want to like kick a man when he's down, okay? But yeah. So there was a comment that was made there in terms of the no daylight, okay? And I think this clip has it in it. I want to try and get more clarification in terms of that no daylight comment, but let's just take a listen to this one. I haven't pre-listened to this one, but let me just see what's here.
You just said that
what did
he
he not
told.
say?
You said that he told Kamala Harris that she could not have any distance
False.
from
It's
him.
been reported. He told
doesn't
her
matter
point
what he
blank.
was.
He told her point blank, no daylight, kid, no daylight.
Because reporting can never be wrong.
Are you attacking the journalism around it?
You think reporting can never be wrong?
If you want to be
you
anti-journalism,
come in,
I'll
you
be
come on
pro-journalism,
here
yeah.
and you attack reporting every night.
I do not.
We actually.
Okay, so we already kind of heard this this piece here, but apparently, yeah, there. It's fun. It's fun. It really is. It's fun taking these people to task because they honestly they want you to consider and think honestly about all of this. They want you to forget what happened, 3 days ago or whatever. They want you to forget what happened past 3 days ago or 3 months ago or whatever. So, but anyway, yeah. So, yeah, it just, they're going to try and go back over and over again and like relitigate, rehash, try and figure out what they did wrong with the 2024 election. And in fact, reportedly, Joe Biden actually even admitted the fact that he tries to claim it's his fault. It was his fault because of the fact that, that Kamala Harris failed. Now, wait a minute. Let's think about that for a second. Joe Biden is saying that it's his fault that Donald Trump won in 2024. So is what Joe Biden's saying is that a woman of color who is supposedly the most qualified individual to be the president of the United States lost because a white geriatric caused her problems? Wait a minute. So, in other words, Joe, what you're saying is that Kamala Harris couldn't have actually won the election had it not been for you. That you, well, I mean, okay, let's just be honest. Joe Biden thinks that the entire Obama presidency and its quote unquote success was because of him as well. So, yeah. Yeah, anyway. Oh, Biden. Oh, my gosh. And of course, the Democrats are continually saying, hey, you know what? If Biden had just said that he wasn't going to run for another term, he would have been just fine. We would have been just fine. Really? You would have? Was word salad? Let's be honest. I mean, let's be completely honest. And I hate to kind of relitigate this, but it's pertinent to the topic of conversation. Let's be completely honest. The more times that Kamala Harris got in front of a camera, the worse she actually got. So if you'd have given her more than just 100 days or whatever it was that was left in the campaign for her to do whatever it was that she was going to do you honestly believe that she would have been able to actually pull it out? I mean, shoot, she went on to a interview with her best buddy lapdog, Tim Tampon Tim, lying, stolen valor, coward Tim Walls, as her little, like, support animal. And she she couldn't even get past that without them splicing it together in such a very very creative way to make her sound like she was so much better than what she was. Same thing with 60 Minutes, and 60 Minutes got caught at it and is currently having to negotiate a settlement with Donald Trump, which, by the way, when people negotiate a settlement like that, that pretty much dictates or indicates, I should say, that the defense side thinks that they couldn't have won the case. That the defense attorneys are like, you know what? We're probably going to lose here, so you might want to go to a settlement because of the fact that, we're probably going to lose here, and the settlement is going to be the cheaper way out. Anyway, well, of course, like I said, all of this comes, honestly, on the heels of the release, potentially, of the Biden classified documents interview audio, which is, supposedly got a FOIA deadline. This in Woke Spy. Trump administration officials are preparing to release the unredacted recording of Her's interview with Joe Biden, in which he explains how documents containing classified national secrets were piled up in his home garage. Okay. Once again, I'm just going to point this out. All right. Joe Biden was a senator. Joe Biden was a vice president. When those documents ended up in his garage, there is no declassification authority that fits with either one of those two positions. The only person who has declassification authority in accordance with the Constitution of the United States is the president. And yet these documents ended up in an unsecured garage that multiple people, including foreign nationals, potentially had access to. And that was just one singular place that they showed up. They also showed up in an unsecured, unlocked, unmanned university office as well. Classified documents showed up there. So this guy, I mean, let's be serious. Biden took classified documents. End of story. All right? End of story. But in this conversation, what Her found out was essentially that he is a, quote, well-meaning elderly man with poor memory that would likely find a jury that is sympathetic to him, and therefore I am not going to bother to file charges against him. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. Anyway, reportedly, according to the transcripts, which, by the way, we've already seen the transcripts. So what was said is already in the public view. How it was said and how long it took Joe Biden to answer questions. Yeah, and possibly even because reportedly the transcripts at the same time, as I recall correctly, were also mentioned to be, we kind of cut out all of the ums and uhs and, verbal pauses and what some people would call a verbal tick. or something along those lines. We cut all of that out, which you notice that whenever Joe Biden gets confused, he does go into a verbal tic where he starts stumbling and stammering. And then he collects himself and will either fall silent or follow along with the word look, and then some random thought that popped into his head. So these tapes, I mean, honestly, they're going to show. They're going to show what he is having troubles with and what he, how bad it actually got. I'm sure they had to go and redirect him in many, many times in many cases. So, yeah. Anyway. So while the details of the pending release, this again, according to Woke Spy, are in flux, the Biden camp is preparing for a major confrontation. This again is part of the reason why I believe that he showed up on The View for that interview, to try and demonstrate that Joe Biden is cognizant and cognitively all collected, which that failed. Anyway, the decision in the piece, the decision of whether to release the tapes also operates under a deadline set by the Freedom of Information Act request that was filed by many conservative legal groups, which is set for May the 20th. I'm looking at the date right now. It's May the 10th. We're talking about 10 more days here. Well, technically 9, because we're almost done with May the 10th. Anyway, the Justice Department has been ordered by a judge in the FOIA hearing, okay, to decide or to declare whether it still stands by that decision. Yeah. I don't think the Justice Department is going to stop this, because the Justice Department is under a different regime and a different directive, a different law and order directive. So, of course, at the time, the Biden administration argued that the policy would chill witnesses participating in other high-profile federal investigations. Republicans, of course, have long sought access to the tapes, which they say further elucidate the mental decline that Biden suffered from and which members of his administration covered up. Mike Davis, who is an occasional advisor to President Trump, told the outlet that her audio will confirm what is one of the biggest cover-ups in American history. Only one? No, I think there's another cover-up too that I'm also a lot more interested in. That has to deal with the Biden influence peddling scheme. But anyway. So House Republicans, of course, don't appear to be part of the group pushing for the tapes release. Democrats at the time fought against it and accused the GOP of seeking to spin the audio into an attack ads the following year. Well, yeah. So anyway, the report of the transcript of the interview shows that Biden himself made, quote, car noises before wandering off topic about a man losing his genitals. According to the, and I didn't see this as a part of the transcript, but according to this piece, the transcript has, and the worst part was, now this is Joe Biden speaking, the worst part was they said I couldn't drive it outside the driveway. It's a long driveway. So I'd get to the bottom of the driveway, tack it up to about $4,000. Makes a car sound. Laughter. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like we really want to have that guy in charge of the nuclear button. Nuclear codes to launch missiles. Yeah, no. Anyway. Oh. I'm glad he's gone, but I wish they'd just let him go. Let him go away. Well, the Trump administration is spending a lot of cycles trying to clean up from the mess of that Biden administration. Don't forget, too, we also have the whole idea of whether or not the auto pen was used legally with Biden's knowledge and understanding in terms of what's going on. Oh, I missed a couple of comments over here. Becky from Down Under says, even from Australia, we saw he was an idiot. Yeah, Sky News Australia, I think, had some of the more honest reporting on that entire freaking thing. Anyway. Well, one of the things that many people may not remember happened that actually led to and was preceded with, and by that I mean it preceded the attack on October 7th on Israel by the Hamas organization. Excuse me. But Iran was handed $6 billion by the Biden administration. Okay. Once again, I'm going to say that number again. Get ready. $6 billion by the Biden administration. And of course, the Biden administration did a lot of Iranian appeasement and those kinds of things, just like the Obama administration did before the Trump administration. Well, guess what? We're now back in the same position that we were several years, if not a decade or two ago, with regards to Iranian nuclear weapons. Yes, we are back to where we were prior to the JPCOA or whatever the thing was. Folks, the Iranians apparently have now another alleged secret weapons facility. Now, this particular nuclear facility has apparently been reported to be in operation for more than a decade. We have satellite images showing it. Fox News got a hold of them. This is the image that I'm showing on screen right now is the start of a video that demonstrates this is a satellite image of a potential nuclear facility for the Iranians. Fox News has exclusively obtained satellite imagery revealing what an opposition group says is a previously undisclosed Iranian nuclear weapons facility, raising fresh concerns amid ongoing negotiations between Tehran and the Trump administration. Now, for those of you who may not quite understand all of this about nuclear energy, in order to provide power from uranium in particular, you have to enrich it. When you enrich it, you can enrich it to anywhere from 5 to, say, 60%. And any of that will be essentially graded and able to be used for power to perform the function of a nuclear facility in terms of nuclear, I think it's fission, it's the splitting of the atoms. Okay. Problem is that it doesn't, when you're enriching the uranium, and what you do is you spin it in a centrifuge, and by enrichment, you're basically like pulling the impurities out of the uranium to make it more pure. The problem that you have, though, is that the distance between 5% and 90% plus, it really isn't all that long. Think of it this way. It's kind of like the spin cycle in your washing or your dryer. Okay? Actually, I'm sorry. In your washing machine. It's kind of like the spin cycle. The longer the spin cycle happens, the more water gets sucked out of your clothes. It's a pretty decent analogy in terms of what is actually happening during these centrifuges. And the longer you spin it, the drier your clothes actually become. Well, this, honestly, is part of the problem. And so when you have a nuclear facility or a nuclear site like this, and it cannot be inspected by the Atomic Energy Agency or the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is the IAEA, the agency that is tasked with watching over regimes like this in terms of their nuclear facilities and how much they're actually enriching the uranium, etc. What you end up with is, because again, the IAEA hasn't gone into Iran in a long time, what you end up with is a situation where it is entirely possible that Iran potentially has the capability of making a nuclear weapon right now. So, the newly identified site, because again, this is a brand new facility that was reportedly unknown before, the newly identified site locating in Iran's Semnan province is far from the regime's already known nuclear facilities. According to the National Council of Resistance of Iran, intelligence gathered from sources inside the country points to a sprawling compound covering nearly 2,500 acres. Codenamed the Rainbow Site, reportedly, by Iranian officials, the facility has reportedly been in operation for more than a decade. Masked as a chemical production company known as Deba Energy Seba. Yeah. There's some question with regards to all of this. And again, I don't put it past the Iranians to hide this. They've done it in the past. Anyone with a memory longer than, Joe Biden's knows that these people have continually and consistently attempted to avoid detection of all of these things. Now, according to the NCRI sources, the primary function of the Rainbow Site is the extraction of tritium, which is a radioactive isotope that is used to enhance nuclear weapons. Unlike uranium enrichment, tritium has virtually zero peaceful or commercial applications. For an example, like I just said, uranium can be used in nuclear power production, which is what Iran is essentially saying that's what they are attempting to do here. That's what they're trying to do. Okay? Now, if this site is enriching tritium, then what's happening here is this is casting further doubt on Iran's longstanding claims that its nuclear ambitions are solely for energy or civilian use. Now, there are some questions, of course, because Iran is a very petroleum-rich country. It's got a lot of petroleum resources. So why would they necessarily need to push nuclear for their energy needs? Why would they be focused on nuclear for their energy needs? They already have a vast supply, reportedly, of petroleum-based products that are easier and more cost-effective to implement. Why are they still pushing for these nuclear facilities? Well, there's only one reason why, and that's because they want to make the step from nuclear energy to nuclear weapons. Because don't forget, the Iranian regime has but one thing that they want to do, and that is to kill Israel and then face us. Anyway, so despite this, despite this intelligence that came out, senior officials remain optimistic. Vice President J.D. Vance, speaking Tuesday, excuse me, Speaking Tuesday said that the talks with Iran about this whole thing remain on track. Vance told reporters, quote, "Without prejudging the negotiation, I will say so far so good. We've been very happy with how the Iranians have responded to some of the points that we've made." Now, the discovery of this site, by the way, could complicate the already delicate diplomacy surrounding Iran's nuclear capabilities and the possibility of a renewed agreement. Well, finding this kind of thing out over in that region is also making people ask the questions, is it time for a regime change? Is it time for Iran to have a regime change? Now, let's be honest. The president doesn't matter. The councils don't matter. What does matter is the Ayatollahs. That's what matters over in Iran. They are the government of Iran. It really has nothing to do with the president or anything else. They're just frontmen, shills, puppets, whatever you want to call them. Okay. Unfortunately, I have a bit of a challenge with this because I seem to recall the United States doing a regime change in a country in that neck of the woods known as Iraq. We put in a guy by the name of Saddam Hussein, and look how that turned out. He invaded Kuwait, and we had to go in and knock him back and eventually kill him. So I'm not exactly confident in the idea of regime change and essentially the Americans trying to push something like this. So there's a good piece here in Real Clear Defense that kind of discusses why regime change in Iran is becoming inevitable. So the first thing that they point out is that Iran is facing unprecedented pressure, both from within and outside its borders. Internally, there is a bunch of economic collapse, widespread political disillusionment, and mass rejection of the religious authoritarianism that has traditionally run the country, but also has profoundly weakened the regime's legitimacy. Externally, of course, you have Iran's regional influence is diminishing as Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis suffer serious military defeats and diplomatic isolation. Now, the convergence of these pressures, according to the piece, make regime change in Iran increasingly likely. For Western policymakers, this is not the time for short-term crisis management. It's the time to prepare for what is called a democratic transition, according to this. So, 46 years, apparently, after the Islamic Revolution, Iranian public sentiment has now turned sharply against the ruling elite. So, a 2022 survey for the Group for Analyzing and Measuring Attitudes in Iran, their acronym is GAMAN, found that nearly 90% of Iranians do not support the Islamic Republic as a system of governance. I mispronounced that. Anyway. Additionally, 73% of respondents of this poll favor the separation of religion from politics, directly opposing the regime's theocratic foundations. Because remember what I was saying, the Ayatollahs are actually the government. There are calls for secular democracy and respect for human rights that are transcending ideological boundaries. Opposition is starting to come from a wide range of contingencies, meaning women's rights activists, students, laborers, ethnic minorities, monarchists, secular Republicans, and even traditional religious groups. So I guess sending their Iranian folks over here to gain education here in the West doesn't seem to be working out quite so well for them, because going back there to do the work is, they're starting to feel the pressure, let's say. Anyway, the Islamic regime is increasingly unable to enforce its compulsory hijab law, as millions of Iranian women are now openly defying it. At the same time, hardline factions within the regime are pressuring authorities to crack down and strictly implement that same law. Yet the regime itself is finding itself paralyzed, unable to either grant women the freedom to choose their clothing or to return to the mass arrests and repression of earlier years. And reportedly, according to this writer, the gulf between state and society has grown irreparably wide. Reform is no longer seen as a viable option. Today, the Iranian people themselves pose the greatest threat to the regime's survival, more so than any other external actor. So, yeah. Anyway, there's more in this piece, but let's just suffice it to say, Iran is under a lot of pressure from both internal and external forces, and this whole idea of them becoming a nuclear power is not exactly something that the West should necessarily be focused on. So this writer also calls out the fact that Tehran's longstanding strategy of regional power projection through proxy militias, again, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, is in steep decline. In Gaza, Hamas, who are backed by Iran, has suffered severe military losses during and after the October 2023 conflict with Israel. And they're about to get occupied. Gaza Strip is about to get occupied by Israel. And Israel will ensure that no Iranian forces or help or assistance to Hamas actually make it through there. I guarantee you that. To continue in the piece, Hezbollah, once a key Iranian asset in Lebanon, has been politically isolated and is increasingly rejected by the Lebanese public. In Syria, a shifting power dynamic and regime realignment have weakened Iran's position there. Iranian-backed militias in Iraq have been disbanded or absorbed into the national military, and the Iraqi government faces growing pressure to distance itself from Tehran. In Yemen, the U.S. and British airstrikes have severely weakened the Houthis, causing the Houthis to actually surrender, at least in theory. And following the Houthi missile attack on May 4th, which reportedly landed just 100 meters from Israel's largest airport, there is a certain Israeli strike against sites within Iran. So Israel is probably going to strike back at Iran for doing what Iran's doing. Basically, what all this kind of sums up to is the fact that we're dealing with an area that is severely unstable and a regime that is ripe to be toppled. And I think that we are, in terms of in the Western world, should be paying attention and attempting to do so, although we don't necessarily need to get directly involved in any way, shape, or form. So I reported not too long ago, shifting back to the domestic front, I reported not too long ago that the Department of Justice had done criminal referrals or had received criminal referrals on New York Attorney General Letitia James. Well, now it has been confirmed that the FBI is investigating Letitia James. So the FBI has opened up a investigation for this. And of course, the Democrats in New York have already, let's just say they've already started to bolster their position for it. According to a report from the Populous Times, Well, the FBI's office is reportedly investigating James over the real estate and mortgage activities where she lied on her mortgage applications in order to gain more favorable, shall we say, terms. And specifically over the claim that her Virginia home was going to be her primary residence while she was serving as New York's Attorney General. All right. The Western Journal has now reported that revelations have emerged following some leaks that the Democratic state legislature in New York has quietly included a $10 million legal defense fund as a part of the New York state budget. Now, this fund reportedly is supposed to cover legal expenses for state officials that are facing federal investigations initiated during the Trump administration. The Democrats are already trying to use your tax dollars to cover up their crimes. Now, the bill itself reportedly covers officials who, quote, obtained representation by private counsel in response to any request, summons, command, subpoena, warrant, investigative interview, or document request, audit, or legally compulsive process related to their work for the state under Trump-era scrutiny. The New York Republican State Committee Chairman Ed Cox condemned this fund, basically stating that it's an outrageous abuse of power and a slap in the face to every New Yorker. If you're in New York, honestly, and you are now being told by the state legislature, hey, by the way, we're commandeering some of your tax dollars and we're going to put it into this slush fund, essentially, to allow criminals, alleged criminals like Letitia James, to essentially utilize your tax dollars to defend themselves. And in this case, by the way, this would be a civilian matter. This would not be a business of the state at all, to go into play here. So, yeah. Anyway, Cox also said, this is what corruption looks like in plain sight. Political insiders rigging the system to protect their own while hardworking families get shortchanged. Letitia James used her office to wage partisan lawfare against her political opponents. We all know that. And now New Yorkers are footing the bill for the consequences. Surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, Representative Elise Stefanik also criticized the provision, referring to it as the Democrat disgraceful slush fund. In a statement posted on her official website, she wrote, Kathy Hochul and Albany Democrats have reached a new low in their corrupt, far-left agenda by sneaking language into the state budget that misuses hardworking New Yorkers' tax dollars to bankroll Letitia James's legal defense against serious allegations of mortgage fraud. Again, I just want to point out, her mortgage fraud is a personal matter. Why would the government of New York have anything to do with that? I mean, honestly, the argument very well should be made that this is a personal matter under Letitia James. She didn't acquire those properties, for the city or state of New York. She didn't do that. Therefore, it is her who must foot the bill, not the public, the general public of New York City or New York State. I mean, honestly, this is a literal separation of a personal matter and a governmental matter. If she was being charged with something that had to do with her job, I could totally see where the government would have to foot the bill for the legal defense. But this isn't a government matter. This isn't a matter of her on the job. This is only on the matter of a personal nature. She was buying that house personally. She was buying those properties personally. This is not an appropriate use for public funds, public taxpayer dollars. And again, I point out this is not something that the government needs to be sticking their stupid ass nose in. There is absolutely nothing that someone could sit here and say. Someone could sit here and say that her personal matters have everything to do with the state government. They don't. I mean, hell, the government makes Donald Trump, or made Donald Trump, give up all of his personal businesses, give up control of all that, hand them over to a trust that his own kids took. And yet here they are attempting to use your taxpayer dollars, New York, your taxpayer dollars, to defend her on a personal matter. I mean, this is no different than realistically having that slush fund in the federal government for all those Congress people who can't keep their hands to themselves or can't keep it in their pants either. I mean, that's ridiculous. Why does the government need to even have that? That's on a personal level. That would be a personal reason as to why they need to go that. Now, on this particular budget provision, the New York Post editorial board also weighed in and said that there is absolutely no reason for taxpayers to have to bail out James. If she didn't do anything wrong, as she claims, then the case should be easily dismissed. And if there is a case, well, didn't she say that no one is above the law? That doesn't mean no one is above legal bills. They continued and said, bailing out James isn't just offensive on its own. The bill is so broad that it would cover just about any federal investigation of anyone who cashes a state paycheck. It also mentions that James already established a private legal defense fund to fight possible federal charges, so it's not even clear that she needs a taxpayer bailout here. I argue there's no reason to have a taxpayer bailout because it has nothing to do with the federal tax or with the state taxpayers. Period. It's her own personal problem. Anyway. Yeah. So there you go. Now, if convicted, James could actually face years behind bars for lying on her mortgage applications. So, yeah. Anyway. James also said at the time in February of 2024, when she was celebrating a guilty verdict against candidate Donald Trump, not President Donald Trump, for allegedly inflating the Trump's organization's values to secure favorable loans. Okay, notice how that was written. She prosecuted and obtained a guilty verdict for Trump because he allegedly inflated the Trump's organizational values on their properties in order to secure favorable loans. Now, allegedly, she is accused of making false statements on mortgage applications, such as claiming her father as her husband, or claiming also that the Virginia home that she attempted to buy was going to be her primary residence, all to obtain, what is it? Oh, yes, favorable loan. Yeah. Again, Democrats accuse others of that which they are guilty of. All right, folks. That's it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, if you would, please, I'd appreciate a thumbs up if you like it. And, even give me a thumbs down if you don't. On all of my platforms, whether it's YouTube, X, Facebook, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you Monday. Tomorrow is Mother's Day. Hope you all have a great Mother's Day. Give kisses to your moms if they're still here. Otherwise, make sure you visit your mom's grave tomorrow and thank them for doing the wonderful jobs that they all do for their mothers. Enjoy your Mother's Day tomorrow. Have a great rest of your weekend, and good night, everybody.